Hi, I'm Mackenzie.
Hey, I'm Denise, and welcome to the podcast from Rundown to Renewed.
We're going to be continuing through the book of the 4-8 principle. And this is based off of Philippians 4-8 that says, finally, brothers and sisters, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things.
So, this week we're going to talk about our identity. And, we are children of God, but we don't always view ourselves that way.
Yeah.
And so, when we're talking about your self worth, your self image, your self concept, that refers to the way that you customarily think about yourself.
Mhm.
And the reality is however you think about yourself is either going to expand or restrict your potential for joy.
Yeah. And I think that when you fine tune your thinking to conform to the Philippians 4:8,
Mhm.
you just naturally begin to view yourself and the people around you with much greater respect. And why? It's because you're focusing on these people's positives,
Mhm.
their positive traits, rather than just judging them or, concentrating on their negative things.
Yeah, I mean, have you ever been around somebody that just nitpicks at everybody?
Yeah.
Like something that you didn't even like think was a negative, but they pointed out, and then it's like, oh, and then it's almost like it's so much easier to get like caught up in that negative
For sure.
like whirlwind of, and I don't even know.
Yeah.
It's not great. And
No,
are you joyful? Are you joyful when you get caught up in the nitpicking?
I don't think it's possible to be
Mm,
joyful
mm-mm.
and negative at the same
It
time.
is not. It is not. So there you go. In Ephesians chapter 2, verse 10, it says that we are God's masterpiece and that he has created us anew in Christ Jesus so that we can do the good things that he planned for us long ago.
Mm.
And the reality is, and I hope this encourages you, that, there's no one else like you.
Right.
And there is so much value because of that. And it's so easy to focus on our shortcomings, but that isn't where God desires our focus to be.
Yeah. It's so cool to think about, like, our life is so special.
Mhm.
There's no one else like you. And, our life, it has this unrepeatable opportunity to fulfill God's vision for our life and
Yeah.
to magnify the joy that he has placed within us. And, by magnifying the joy God has given you, you also exhibit your faith to others and encourage them.
Yeah, absolutely. It'll radiate off of you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, which is hard not to it's hard not to be like attracted to that
Right.
and to be pulled into it. Yeah.
Hmm.
So, so on the opposite side of that, right? Like a mediocre self-concept, it does not come from God, right? But it comes from the hurts and the hard things of this world. And so it results from continuing to identify with and claim the things that haven't worked.
Mm.
And when you do that, you will stay stuck in like a mediocre negative view of yourself. And when we were writing this out, Mackenzie asked me, she goes, "Do you have a personal example of this?" And I said, "Do you want me to cry? Like what?" But I think, something I was catching up on, I haven't been feeling great, so I haven't gone to church the last few weeks. And I was catching up on some sermons, and the last sermon that he did, he talked about the narrow path and he talked about marriage. And it was a beautiful sermon. He did an amazing job, and so much truth was shared. But some of the hard realities of the sermon was that, you shouldn't be treating marriage like it's disposable. And that is how I felt
Mm.
when my marriage disintegrated. I felt completely tossed aside. And I've worked really hard to heal. I've done a lot of therapy and coaching and meeting with other people that have walked a similar path, and I'm so proud of who I am today, and I don't identify as somebody that's been tossed aside, but something about that sermon was also really triggering, and it just brought up, and I know that wasn't his intent. I'm not blaming I'm not blaming the pastor in any way. But it just kind of brought me back to where I was 3 years ago. And that was a really low place. And it was hard not to get sucked into that. And
Right.
I know that's not who I am. And this morning, I let myself feel it, as
Mm.
awful and uncomfortable as it was. I've learned that sometimes you have to sit in the hard stuff to kind of get through it, quote unquote, faster, I guess, instead of avoiding it. Because sometimes when you avoid it, it's still there, and you're not really getting away from it. So I sat with it and I let myself be whatever I needed to be last night. But then this morning it was like, okay, I was not given a spirit of fear. I wasn't given all of these negative things. That is not who I am, and that is not what I'm called to be. And I started to rewrite the narrative again.
Yeah. And I
Yeah.
think that's such an important lesson of healing,
Mhm.
right? Because
Mhm.
sometimes I think, we expect ourselves to be fully healed by a certain time, or
Right.
like you reach this, you're feeling good, you're healed.
Right.
But then something will happen again.
Yep.
And it's just the constant effort of rewiring your brain.
Mhm.
Every opportunity that happens, you have an opportunity to trust God and to rewire your brain and believe his truth.
Yeah. Amen.
So, I mean, no matter what you've gone through, this world has left some type of stain on you. It's in
Yes.
in a positive but also a negative way. And in those negative ways, we have a choice to sit in it and stay there and begin to identify with it.
Right.
Denise said she sat in it
Mhm.
to feel it, to move through that.
Right. There's a difference
And I'm
between
talking about sitting,
Mhm.
sulking, choosing to identify with that. She's choosing not to identify with that.
That's right.
So there's a difference in this. So when we choose that, we're choosing to be chained, to be stuck.
Yes.
But if we're going to the Bible and we're seeing truth and we're choosing to see what God calls us and what he says about that,
Mhm.
you're going to see that these two things are contradicting themselves.
Absolutely. Yep.
What
Yep.
is happening in your head and what you're believing versus what the Bible says about you.
Mhm.
So, when you see yourself as a child of God, you don't accept those artificial restrictions on the quality of joy or the level of impact you can have in this world. And I think that that's critical because how you perceive yourself just sets the ceiling of what God can do with you.
Mhm.
So if you think about being inside of a room and what is happening outside?
I have no idea. It is very
There's
loud.
a very loud train or plane or something.
Yeah. Sorry for
Okay.
the
Well,
the squirrel. But it's okay. I think it's
this is obviously really important to be talking about again.
clearly, yeah.
So,
Mhm.
I mean, maybe we should talk about this again.
Refocus.
But if
Yeah.
you walk into a house and you are only see the first level of the floor, and that's all that you see, and
Mhm.
that's all that you choose to believe is there.
Yeah.
But if you went and found steps in a closet or something, and you saw that there was this whole upstairs there that turned this home into like this immaculate castle, and you never went up there because you never went searching.
Yeah.
You never believed that there was anything than what there is. And that's how I think sometimes we handle like what we believe we can do
Mhm.
is at this level.
Yep.
When God is like, actually, there's 12 levels above you. I'm just waiting for you to realize there's more
Find the
room,
door. Yes.
you know?
To the stairs. Yeah. Mhm.
So, when you see yourself as down and defeated,
Yep.
stuck in those things, that's what you're going to be. But this woeful approach doesn't do any good for you personally, and it only minimizes your contribution to the world.
Yeah.
But if you choose to see yourself as more than a conqueror in this life, you will certainly ascend to that level.
Yeah.
And in Romans 8:37, it says, we are more than conquerors through him who loved us. And I think that that is a great promise to hold on to when you're going through trials.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, I would write that down. I would go and I would write that verse down because that is something I actually, in my house, I have, which we're in right now. Hello. Um, but I actually have sticky notes up by my kitchen sink because I'm in the kitchen all the time. And I'll have like different Bible verses, different truths, different things, because it's like sometimes you just need that physical reminder
Yeah.
of like, oh, no, no, no. Like I am this. I
Yeah.
am not whatever my brain is trying to
Right.
tell me I am, or whatever I'm allowing to get sucked into right now.
Yeah.
And I think that there's power in that. And so if you're someone that really needs those visual reminders, I highly recommend writing it down, putting it on your fridge, put it by your sink, put it in your bathroom, somewhere where you're going to see it every single day.
Yeah.
Um, so because like the reality is we're not really taught to question
Mm,
the validity of our self-concept. And
so
so
true.
we simply behave as like it were true.
Mm,
So if I accepted, we're going to go back to that example I shared. If I just accepted, well, I'm just tossed aside. This is my identity now. And granted, there are days where I still want to hang on to that, right? But I know that's not true.
right.
And I know that other people's actions don't tell me who I am. I actually practiced this with my daughter this week. She's so creative and she has this notebook that she writes in and she's writing a book and she's just so proud of herself and she's so excited. She read some of it to me the other night before bed. So cute, right? But there were these two kids that she did not know at recess come up to her and like I don't know exactly what they said now, but it was something along the lines of like, this is stupid or you're stupid or
Mm,
this and that. And you could see that it hurt her, but it was also like, but mom, I didn't even know them.
yeah.
And I told her, I said, and that is the exact reason why their words don't even matter because they don't know you at all.
Hmm.
And even if someone who knew you said that, I would be questioning it too because, like, what are their intentions with such a thing?
Right.
Because these two boys, they came over, they said whatever they said, and then they walked away. Like, they left her alone. It didn't make any sense. Right. And so I think that, like, are you holding on to whatever negativity is, whatever negative self concept or whatever that is? Or are you choosing to say, no, this is not who I am and who God says I am? That's what I'm going to hang on to.
Yeah, I think about a friend who is just terrified of bees. It's like this very irrational fear. And I know fears are a thing, but it's rooted in error
Mhm.
because she has this belief that when she sees a bee, it's going to attack her. But bees aren't going to sting you unless they feel threatened,
Right,
right?
right.
So if you step on them or if you're near them their home, that's when they typically sting you. But in her mind, when you see one, it's going to attack. And so she has kids now, and guess what her kids are scared of? Also bees.
Hmm.
So this thought rooted in error is now passed down to
Yep.
her children who neither of them are questioning this, but I think that that's similar to our identity. And
Yeah.
if we don't start questioning the own thoughts inside of our heads about ourselves,
Then, yeah, then what happens? Like, if you don't question it,
you stay there.
yeah,
It continues for generations.
yeah,
So
it's being
it's time
passed
to
down.
start asking questions to yourself.
Absolutely. And I think the thing is when you can understand your thought patterns and your belief systems, you can also learn how to upgrade them so that
Yeah.
your thought patterns will serve you and eventually lead you to more joy.
Mm, yeah. What you observe in your own life is merely a reflection
Hmm.
of what is going on inside your brain.
Yep.
And what we do externally reflects what we are really like and what we're really thinking internally.
Hmm.
So if you're seeking drama, drama is going to find you.
Yep.
But if you're seeking joy, joy is going to find you too.
That's right. Yeah. What you focus on expands,
Hmm.
and there's this analogy with like an elephant, right? And so when elephants are infants, they like when they're, being trained for the circus and things like that. they are chained and staked to the ground, which prevents them from escaping and running away. So the trainers can do whatever it is that they need to do.
Mhm.
Right. And so once the elephants are adults, they still remain in the chains, even though they could easily break these chains out of the ground, but they don't even try.
Mm.
And so we can focus. I think about that Bible verse where, and this is a little bit different, but it's talking about like the plank in your own eye, and you're looking at the speck in your brother's. I
Mhm.
mean, what are you focusing on?
Right.
But turn that on yourself, right? Are you focusing on the speck in your own life that's not, but that you've made into a plank? You've made into this big thing,
Mm.
and so it's like we can move past these things. We When we have God's help, we have the power to release anything
Yeah.
that's holding us back.
I love the part where you said, like, the elephants don't even try. Because I think that that is so similar to our self-worth.
Hmm.
Like, sometimes we don't try to get out of situations or have conversations based off of our self-worth.
Yep.
And, these elephants accepted that their worth was only in performing for that circus.
Right.
And it is what it is. How many times have you heard that?
Mhm. I've said it a
But
few times. Whoops.
but self-worth isn't based off of our achievements that we place on ourselves, or your life is so much more outside of your
Hmm.
performances and on your identity as one created and loved by God. These accomplishments, like, don't even help you, you know in the world. Did I say that right? In the
Hmm.
world, these accomplishments don't help you. But when you put your identity in Christ
Right.
and what he says, and you're worthy and you're loved,
Yeah.
those are the things that are going to position you to excel.
Yeah, absolutely. Because you're coming at it from a place of victory.
Right.
I had a session yesterday with one of my clients, and we talked about that because she was kind of wrestling with what she wanted to do in a certain situation, and where she was kind of coming at it from, she was definitely in a defeated state. And this woman is not a defeated woman at
Mm-hmm.
all. She is powerful, but this one instance kind of triggered her. And so we had to kind of work through and say, okay, well, what are your options? Go down this road. Where does it lead you? Go down this road. Where does it lead you? And she realized that the one road she was going to choose was actually one of like defeat,
Mm.
and the other one that I had her kind of practice what she wanted to do, and I said, "What did that feel like?" And she said, "I felt peace."
Mm.
And I said, "Because you're walking in victory
Right.
when you choose that." And I think the most like well-adjusted, mature individuals have a high sense of worth.
Yeah.
You're going to fall short, and you're going to have moments where you're triggered and things come up. That's life, right? But when you can get yourself back into this state of this high self-worth, like you're going to start to say yes to
Mm.
only the things that you feel good about.
Yeah.
And you will receive. Here's the deal, is the reality is you are going to receive only what you're willing to let in.
Mm.
So what are
Say
you
it
willing?
again. Say it again.
Okay. In this world, you will receive only what you're willing to let in.
That's so profound.
It's well, it it reminds you of the stark difference between the defeated thought patterns, the defeated self-concept, and the victor, like the
Right.
victory
Mm-hmm.
self-concept. And it's, which one are you walking in?
Right.
Which one do you want to walk in?
Yep.
Mhm.
And no matter where you're walking right now, it could change with the next thought that comes into your head.
Absolutely.
So if
Absolutely.
you're feeling stuck, you can change that. And if
Absolutely.
you're walking in victory, something's going to trigger you and you're going to have that same choice again.
That's right.
And you're going to get to choose if you want to stay in it in the self-pity woeful, or to accept who God is and who he says you are
That's right.
and honor him through it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we have some discussion questions that we're going to talk about. The first one is, how do you find joy in your unknown right now? The world is full of with unknowns.
Hmm.
We're living it with you guys. So, Denise,
Yeah.
how do you find joy in it?
I think for me, something that's been really helpful, even just this week, I found myself the last few weeks, like I said, I just haven't felt great. And when I don't feel great, then that my mental health kind of tanks too. It's just not great. They sometimes go hand in hand. It's harder to fight the mental battles when your
When you're
body is
sick.
when your
Yeah.
body is fighting against you too. So, but I think for me, I had to kind of shift it a little bit. And I talked about this on my social media accounts where I talked about being on the struggle bus. And it's like you can be on the struggle bus, but you don't have to have a monthly pass.
Mhm.
It's like
Yeah.
you can push, you can get to a stop sign and get yourself out. And so for me, that was kind of what I started to do this week. And
Mhm.
so there's a lot of unknowns everywhere for everyone right now. And for me, I think I'm choosing to look for God in the situations where I have a lot of questions.
Mhm.
Right. And I'm being very specific in how I'm praying over things. And, we've talked about how like what you focus on expands. And so in these prayers, I'm actually seeing them being answered
Mhm.
because I'm looking for it. Like
Right.
I'm believing that I'm praying for this and that God will answer me. And I'm seeing him answer them in real time. And sometimes he doesn't answer in the time that you think he will or that you want him to. Let's get that straight. There are a lot of things I'm praying for that I don't have any kind of answers in. But yet. I don't have answers in yet, but seeing him answer things and being very specific has helped me shift my view of just different things that I'm walking through and those unknown things.
That's awesome.
Hmm.
And I think about some people that, they want to be able to do that, but finding God's hand seems like it's really hard
Hmm.
in what situation you're in right now.
That's real.
So, when I was praying with a friend the other day, she said something in the prayer that was so profound. And I am holding on tight to that right now.
Mm.
And it's, when you can't see his hand, you can trust his heart.
Mm. Say it
Be-
again. That's good. That's good.
when you can't see his hand, you can trust his heart. And we know who God is, we know what he's done. We can look back at our lives and see the miracles that he's done within our own lives. We
Hmm.
know how he works, and we can trust that when we can't see his hand in a situation.
Yeah,
So I am holding on to his heart right now.
I love that.
The next question is, what false stories are you telling yourself that are holding you back?
Mm. Okay, so last podcast, it's funny. Like these things make me giggle, I guess. But in the last podcast, I talked about how I started shifting my belief into I can have what I want. And I was looking at different things that certain friends of mine have that I would love to have. And I caught myself, and I'm very happy for them, right? This is not a jealous space at all. But I caught myself thinking, well, yeah, they can have that, but that's probably not in the cards for me for that to happen. And it's like, oh, Denise, like listen to yourself. And so that is the whole I can't have what I want is a deeply rooted
Right.
belief.
Yeah.
And so I can catch it now,
Hmm.
which is big. I'm not letting it be the narrative, but
Right.
it's still there. And so I think, as you start to shift your like your just your thought patterns and you start to believe what's true versus what you like the negative whatever untruthful things that you've been hanging on to, you know the negative will find ways to come up in different ways
Yeah.
if you aren't intentional to replace it with truth. And so for me it's I'm having to replace it and remind myself no, like God's got it.
Yeah.
He's in it, right? I can trust his heart
Hmm.
while I'm waiting and praying for, X, Y, and Z. And so I think if anyone is kind of in that space of, well, I'm believing for this, but I keep having this thought pattern, I think that's very normal,
Hmm.
especially if it's deeply rooted,
Yeah.
but you can shift it. You just have
Right.
to be very intentional about it. in the process.
Yeah, and those deep rooted thoughts you can heal in one area of your life and it'll show up
It'll
in
show
a
up in another
different,
area.
and you're like, "Oh, I thought I healed this, but now
Right.
still there in a
That's
different
exactly it.
way."
Yep.
So, it's it's huge recognizing it.
Hmm.
And then from there, what are you going to do with it?
That's right.
So, I
Yep.
think that's awesome. And for me, a false story that I'm telling myself is that I'm not safe if I'm not in control. And, our family has been put in this unique situation uh, of, I don't know what word I'm looking for. Um, like our life feels very intruded right now. And so I'm out of control of a lot of things.
Hmm.
And I'm tending to focus on those things that I'm not in control of. And that doesn't do anything for anybody.
Right.
And the fact is, I don't want to be in control because, again, I know who God is. I know what He's done. I know what He will do. And He has promises of protection over us.
That's right.
And so, taking those thoughts of I'm not safe when I'm not in control and realizing that one, I don't want to be in control
Mm. Yep.
at all. Because if I'm in control, a lot of bad could happen in these situations. But also that um, I am safe. You know,
Hmm.
God takes me under his wing in every moment and provides me strength when I do feel out of control.
Yeah.
And that's that's what I'm resting in. I'm resting in, you know, there's a verse in the Bible. I forget where it is and what the situation is. So sorry, but we'll find it and put it in our Facebook group. But there's a prayer when everyone's surrounded by their enemies
Mm.
and they see the angel armies around them, and the one guy doesn't, and so he prays for his friend prays for his spiritual eyes to be opened, and he's then able to see the angel armies. So that's just what I'm picturing. I'm picturing
Wow.
God's angel armies around my home, around my children, my husband, myself, and I'm choosing to see that verse. I'm not safe.
That's really powerful. Yeah.
So if you find yourself self in an unsafe
What
situation right
feels
now,
unsafe.
if
Yeah.
you feel unsafe, like, I understand. I'm sorry, but you have a God bigger than your
That's right.
fears.
Yep.
Um, so something else that we want you guys to do is we want you in this book, it talks about mission statements. And I think this is so great to have personally so that when you are asked to do something, you can say yes or no appropriately if it aligns with your mission statement.
Hmm.
When you are feeling upset about something, you can go back to your mission statement. Whatever life throws you, you can go back to your mission statement and just be like, does this fall in line with it? Yes, no. How do I need to respond? And it's something really good to have. So we're going to post in our Facebook group,
Hmm.
and we're going to have an outline for you to fill out your own mission statement so that you can have that as you deal with life.
Yeah. Because that's real.
And
Yeah.
it can help you find joy. Like,
Yes. Yes. Because you'll start to say yes again. What we talked about. You're going to say yes to the things that fill you up, and you're
yeah.
going to say no to the things that drain you.
Yep.
It's beautiful. It's a
Yeah,
great thing.
for
And
sure.
Mackenzie and I are both we're both life coaches, and so if you find yourself really wrestling with your self concept, your self worth, and you know that you desire more joy and you desire a way forward, coaching is a great tool to help you with that, and we
Yeah.
would be honored to walk alongside you.
Mhm. We also have our women's conference coming up October 5th
Hmm.
in Grove City. Registration is in the description of this video. And this is the last week to register. So make
Yes.
sure you're registered. We're so excited to see you guys in person and get to share some of our testimonies way more deeper in
Yeah.
that setting.
Absolutely. We're excited.
So we love you.
Hmm.
And if you are feeling run down,
There is space for you at our table.